Okay, solving equations, tutorial number 2. Right away, I want you to pause this video, get up, go get a marker board, marker, wipe, and calculator. Do it now. Pause this video. You can do it. Okay, so here we go. We are going to be looking at equations that are a little more complicated than the 1 and 2 step equations that we were doing last tutorial. And I came up with something that may help some people, and I call it DC-GAM. Now, when we were doing the 2-step equations, we talked about how we're always going to be adding or subtracting first, and then multiplying or dividing second to solve for x. Well, these are going to be more complicated, and we're going to have to consider things like distributing and combining like terms and getting all the x's on the same side. And then finally, we get to the steps 4 and 5, which are the steps that we used for 2-step equations. So the first thing I want you to notice, whenever you see an equation, if you see parentheses, we always want to distribute first. And so that's what we're going to do with this first problem. We're going to go ahead and distribute. 5 times 3x is 15x. 5 times 6 is 30. And we're going to write down the rest of the problem. And then we see that we have a 2-step. As soon as we see we have a 2-step, we can skip. We don't have to combine like terms or get x's on the same side. As soon as we get a 2-step, we know that we're going to steps 4 and steps 5. So here we go. To get rid of 30, we're subtracting 30 from both sides. We know how to do this. And we get 60 minus 30 is 30. Divide 15 on both sides. And we end up with x is equal to 2. We could easily just go ahead and put that 2 back in and see that we would get, what, 6 plus 6 is 12, and 12 times 5 is 60. So the first new thing that we're seeing in this lesson is watch out for distributive property. If you have to distribute, do that right away. All right, so what I want you to do is get that marker board, and I want you to practice exactly the problem that we just learned. I mean, it's not the exact problem, but the same type. I know you think you don't need it, but practice really does make perfect, especially when you can practice and then see the answer. So what I want you to do is pause, do the problem, then unpause, and you will see the answer pop up. Are you ready? Pause. All right, welcome back, and let's go ahead and see if your answer is the same as mine. Pause if it's not and figure out where you went wrong. Learning from our mistakes is essential. All right, so here's another one. I'm going to use DC-GAM, D standing for distribute, especially because I see the parentheses and I know that I'll have to distribute. So I'm going to do that first. So I'm distributing first. 5 times 2 is 10. I'm remembering to distribute to both terms in the parentheses, both the 2 and the negative 4x. And then I'm just going to bring everything else down. I'm going to bring down the plus 10x, bring down the equal, and bring down the 17. I'm not going to try to do more than one step at a time. So then I'm going to look at the second step. In the second step, the C, so D is distribute, C is combine. Combine like terms on the same side. We're not talking about combining terms if one's on one side and one's on the other. You're not allowed to do that. But if something's on the same side, like look, I have a 10. Oh, nope, can't combine with that. Sorry, there's no other, just normal number. But I do have a negative 20x and I have a positive 20x. Those are like terms. They both are x's. So negative 20 plus 10, if I did that in my calculator, I'd end up with what? A negative 10x. I'm going to bring down this other 10, so I'll have a 10. And then I combine these two to make a negative 10x, and then I bring down the equal and the 17. All right, so now let's go ahead. I have a 2-step, so I can skip all the other steps and just go down to those last 2 steps. I know this looks a little different, but it still is that I've got to get rid of the 10. It's a positive 10. To get rid of it, I'm going to subtract the 10. See how the 10's not near the x? I'm not going to divide. I'm just going to get rid of it by subtracting. So that's gone. I bring down the negative 10x. 17 minus 10 is 7. Oh no, this isn't going to be a pretty answer. That's okay. We can deal with it. We're going to divide both sides by negative 10. Please remember that sign when you divide. And you can leave your answer as negative 7 over 10. We like to put that negative either in the numerator or right out in front of the fraction. And if you want to, you could obviously turn it into a decimal too. Either way. All right, so you know what to do. You're going to switch to marker board. You're going to pause this. You're going to work it out, unpause, and hopefully you're going to celebrate because your answer is the same as mine. Are you ready? Pause. Okay, welcome back. There's the answer. Double check yours. And here we go. All right, we're still doing DC-GAM. We see that we have distributive property we can do, and that's our D. So we're going to distribute first. So 2 times 2 is 4, so 2 times 2x is 4x, 2 times 5 is 10. And then we bring down everything else. We bring down the plus, we bring down the 3, we bring down the equal, we bring down the 17. And let's see, what are our like terms? Do I have another term that has x in it? Nope. So I can't do anything with the 4x, but look at this. 10 plus 3. I know that 10 plus 3 is 13. I can combine those two. I'm going to bring down everything else. I'll bring down the 4x. Now this is where it gets tricky. See how I brought down the 4x and the 13 was just sitting there? I got to put something in between. So I have to decide, was 13 a positive 13 or was it a negative 13? Obviously 10 plus 3 is positive, so I'm going to put a plus in between them. So stop and think. When you have two terms and you have nothing in between, think if you know what it is that you need to put there. Bring down the equal, bring down the 17, and darn it if we're just back to that two-step, which is the last two steps of DC-GAM. So far, we haven't done step 3 yet. But that's okay. So we know how to do these two-step equations, which we're going to go ahead and subtract first. So we end up with 4. We're going to divide both sides by 4. Yeah, got a lot of 4s in these videos. All right, x equals 1. All right, you know what to do. We're going to switch to marker board so we can practice this. Go ahead and pause the video, do this on your marker board, and come on back. All right, check your answer. See if you made a mistake, see if you can catch where you made it and learn from your mistake, because that's the best kind of learning, right? When we can catch our mistake and learn from it. All right. Whoa, this one's really long. We can do it. We are going to follow DC-GAM. If you don't like DC-GAM, just remember that we're going to do distributive property first every time we see that we can. So it looks a little bit weird. I get it. Distributive property is right there. It's smack in the middle. See this 4x? We're going to ignore it, okay? It's like I'm going to put a box around it to just tell you we're ignoring that. We're not distributing the 4x. It's this 3 that we're distributing. So you got to distribute whatever occurs right before that parenthesis. So here we go. 3 times 5x is 15x. 3 times 2 is 6. And I'm going to bring down everything else. Now, I'm not going to forget to bring down that 4x. Once again, if I bring down something and now there's not a sign in between the 4x and the 15x, I have to ask myself, is that 15x positive or negative? And you know it's positive. If it were negative, we would have written a negative to begin with. All right, so we're done with distributive property. Now we're going to combine like terms. Let's look for the like terms. Well, I see a lot of terms with x in it, right? So I see a 4x, I see a 15x, and I see an x. Now, a lot of people, when x is just x, like to ignore it. But you know what? Wonder if instead of x's, I said cookies. I see 4 cookies, I see 15 cookies. If I saw a cookie by itself, would I just say, oh, there's no cookie there? I would say there's 1 cookie. So that might be helpful when you see an x by itself. Just put 1 to remind you to count it in. So we've got 4 plus 15, which is 19, plus another x, which is 20. So we have 20 x's altogether. So we just did that second step of combining the like terms on the same side. And now we're going to go ahead and bring down the 6, the equal, and the 46. And look at this. We're skipping step 3. We're down to a 2-step. Where we subtract the 6 from both sides first, and then divide both sides by 20. All right, you know what's coming up. Get your marker board ready. All right, go ahead and write this down on your marker board and press pause first, then write it down on your marker board. All right, ready? Hopefully your answer matches up with my answer. If not, figure out where you went wrong. This is the learning time. It's a time to learn from your mistakes. All right, this one looks a lot easier, right? It's just distributive property, and then we're going to end up with the 2-step. But here's the deal. A lot of times when people see this negative here, they're like, how do I distribute a negative? And so it's always okay when you don't see a number, well, I don't want to make a blanket rule. In this case, it's okay to rewrite this as -1 times 7x plus 4. It's also okay just to, if you didn't want to write the negative, just to distribute negative. Negative times 7x is negative 7x. Negative times 4 is negative 4. Some people like to put that negative 1 there, and go ahead and do that if that helps you. Let's distribute. We have a negative 1 times 7 is negative 7, so negative 1 times 7x is negative 7x. Negative 1 times 4 is negative 4, and there you go. After we distributed, we're right back down to the 2 steps. We're going to add 4, and we're going to divide by negative 7, and there we go. All right, so decide what you want to do. It's okay to just distribute that negative and say that that's negative 7x, and distribute the negative to the positive 4 and say that's negative 4. You don't really have to write a negative 1, but a lot of people find comfort in doing it that way, and that's good. You can do it either way. All right, so let's switch to marker boards, and let's just do this last one. I'm pretty sure this is our last one. Go ahead and pause it. All right, make sure that you got x equals negative 4. Pause it if you didn't, so that you can double check your work. And that's it, because we're going to be doing tutorial number 3 in just a minute. All right, so thanks for joining me. Please, practice really does make perfect. And it's not just doing work. It's practicing, checking your answers, and learning from your mistakes. That's why you see all the keys posted, because I want to give you the opportunity to be in charge of your learning and learn from your own mistakes. All right, thank you for joining me.